Hamlet, Part 1, A Vision at Midnight. Great was the sorrow in Denmark when the good King Hamlet suddenly died in a mysterious manner. The rightful heir, the young Prince Hamlet, was at that time absent in Germany, studying at the University of Wittenberg. And before he could reach home, his uncle Claudius, brother to the late king, had seized the throne. More than this, within 2 months after the death of her husband, Claudius had persuaded the widowed Queen Gertrude to marry himself. Hamlet, called back to Denmark by the death of his father, met on his return this second terrible shock of the hasty marriage of his mother. To one of his noble nature, such an action seemed almost incredible. For not only had Queen Gertrude been apparently devoted to her first husband, but the two brothers were so absolutely different, both in appearance and character, that it was difficult to imagine how anyone who had known the noble King Hamlet could descend to the base and contemptible Claudius. King Claudius now usurped all the rights of sovereignty, and by being very suave and gracious to those who surrounded him, he hoped to become popular. He would fain have banished all remembrance of the late king, though he was glib enough in uttering hypocritical words of sorrow. By pressing on the festivities of his marriage with Gertrude, he hoped to get rid of all signs of mourning. But the young Prince Hamlet refused to lay aside his suits of woe. Among the gay throng that crowded the court of the new monarch, he moved, a figure apart, clad in the deepest black, and with his brow clouded with melancholy. His mother, Queen Gertrude, tried some feeble attempts at consolation, but her commonplace, conventional remarks only showed how shallow was her own nature, and how far she was from understanding her son's depth of feeling. She begged him to put off his somber raiment and look with a friendly eye on his uncle. Do not forever, with thy veiled lids, seek for thy noble father in the dust, she urged him. Thou knowest it is common. All that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity. Aye, madam, it is common, replied Hamlet. If it be, why seems it so particular with thee? Asked the queen. Seems, madam. Nay, it is. I know not seems, said Hamlet with noble indignation. And then he went on to say that it was not his inky cloak, nor the customary suits of solemn black, nor sighs, nor tears, nor a dejected visage, together with all forms, moods, shapes of grief, that could denote him truly. These indeed seem, for they are actions that a man might play. But I have that within which passeth show, these but the trappings and the suits of woe. Then King Claudius took up the theme and delivered a homily to Hamlet on the duty of remembering that the death of fathers was a very common event, and one over which it was very wrong to sorrow much. All fathers died, one after another. It was a law of nature, and it was therefore a fault against heaven, and most absurd in reason, to lament over something which must certainly happen. To a son who had loved his father as Hamlet had loved his, such cold-blooded moralizing was nothing short of torture. And when Claudius went on to bid him throw to earth his unprevailing woe and think of himself as of a father, the young prince shuddered with horror at the suggestion. For let the world take note, you are the most immediate to our throne, added Claudius pompously, looking round at the assembled courtiers. They all bowed subserviently at this announcement, and none of them dared so much as to hint that the son of their late king was their rightful ruler. When he found how events were going, Hamlet no longer cared to remain in his own country, and would have preferred to return to his studies at Wittenberg. But when his mother joined her entreaties to his uncles in urging him to stay in Denmark, Hamlet consented to do so. In spite of the forced joviality which the new king tried to impose on his subjects, there was a feeling of uneasiness abroad. First, there were rumors of war. The late king had been a valiant soldier and had fought victoriously with the ambitious neighboring state of Norway. King Fortinbras of Norway, out of pride, had challenged King Hamlet, but had met with defeat. Fortinbras himself was slain, and some of his possessions were forfeited to Denmark. On the death of Hamlet, young Fortinbras, thinking that perhaps the country would be in an unsettled state or holding a poor opinion of the worth of its new ruler, resolved to try to get back some of the lands his father had lost. He therefore collected a band of reckless followers, ready for any desperate enterprise, and prepared to invade the country. News of this reaching Denmark, warlike preparations were at once set on foot. Day and night there was toiling of shipwrights and casting of cannon, and strict watch was kept in all directions against the possible invaders. But it was not alone the thought of the invasion that disturbed the minds of the Danish officers. A strange occurrence had lately happened, and they feared it boded no good to the country. As the gentlemen of the guard, Marcellus and Bernardo, kept their watch on the platform of the castle at Elsinore, the ghost of the late king appeared to them. It looked exactly the same as they had known him in real life, clad in the very armor he had on when he had fought against Fortinbras of Norway. For 2 nights running, this figure had appeared before them, passing by them 3 times with slow and stately march, while they, turned almost to jelly with fear, stood dumb and did not speak to it. In deep secrecy, they imparted the news to Horatio, a fellow student and great friend of the young prince. And on the 3rd night, he kept watch with them. Everything happened exactly as they had said, and at the accustomed hour, the apparition again appeared. Horatio spoke to it, imploring it, if possible, to tell the reason of its coming. At first the ghost would not answer, but it was just lifting its head as if about to speak when a cock crew. Then, starting like a guilty thing upon a fearful summons, it faded from their sight. By Horatio's advice, they agreed to tell young Hamlet what they had seen. The spirit dumb to them might speak to him. Hamlet heard their tale with astonishment. He resolved to watch himself that night, and if the apparition again assumed his father's person, to speak to it, though all the spirits of evil should bid him hold his peace. He begged the officers to keep silence about what they had already seen, and about whatsoever else might happen, and promised to visit them on the platform between 11 and 12 o'clock that night. At the appointed hour, Hamlet was on the spot, and a few minutes after the clock had struck 12, the ghost appeared. Deeply amazed, but resolute to know the cause why his father's spirit could not rest, but thus revisited the earth, Hamlet implored the ghost to speak and tell him the meaning. "Say, what is this? Wherefore? What should we do?" he entreated. The apparition made no answer, but beckoned to Hamlet to follow it, as if it wished to speak to him alone. "Look, with what courteous action it waves you to more retired ground. But do not go with it," said Marcellus. "No, by no means," said Horatio. "It will not speak, then I will follow it," said Hamlet. "Do not, my lord," entreated Horatio. "Why, what should be the fear?" said Hamlet. "I do not set my life at a pin's feet. And for my soul, what can it do to that, being a thing immortal as itself? It waves me forth again, I'll follow it." Again, Hamlet's companions did their utmost to hinder him, even seizing hold of him to prevent his going, for they feared lest the mysterious visitant should lure him on to his own destruction. But Hamlet shook off their detaining hands and bidding the ghost go before, he boldly followed. Having led the young prince to a lonely part of the ramparts, the ghost at last consented to speak. He told Hamlet that he was indeed the spirit of his father, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and by day to suffer various penalties, till the sins committed in his life had been atoned for. He then went on to exhort Hamlet that, if he had ever loved his father, he should revenge his foul and most unnatural murder. "Murder!" gasped Hamlet. "Murder most foul, as in the best it is. But this most foul, strange, and unnatural," returned the ghost solemnly. "Now, Hamlet, hear. 'Tis given out that, sleeping in my orchard, a serpent stung me. So the whole ear of Denmark is by a forged account of my death rankly deceived. But know, thou noble youth, the serpent that stung thy father's life now wears his crown." "O my prophetic soul, my uncle!" exclaimed Hamlet. "Aye," answered the ghost, and then he broke into rage against the wicked Claudius, who, after murdering his brother, had, with his subtle craft and traitorous gifts, contrived to win the affection of the widowed queen. "O Hamlet, what a falling off was there," lamented the ghost, for he could not help knowing how infinitely beneath him, even in natural gifts, was his contemptible brother. "Sleeping within my orchard, my custom always of the afternoon," he continued, "thy uncle stole on me, with juice of henbane in a vial, which he poured into my ears. The effect of this poison was instant and horrible death, and again the ghost urged Hamlet to avenge his murder, but he commanded his son that, whatever he did against his uncle, he was to contrive no harm against his mother. "Leave her to heaven, and to those thorns that in her bosom lodge, to prick and sting," he concluded. "Fare thee well. The glowworm shows the matin to be near, and begins to pale his ineffectual fire. Adieu, adieu, adieu. Remember me." "Remember thee? Aye, thou poor ghost, while memory holds a seat in this distracted globe," cried Hamlet as the vision faded away, and far across the sea a faint lightening of the eastern horizon showed that the dawn would soon appear. "Remember thee! Yea, from the table of my memory I'll wipe away all trivial fond records, all saws of books that youth and observation copied there, and thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter. Yes, by heaven, O villain, villain, smiling, cursed villain, my tables, meet it is I set it down, that one may smile and be a villain. At least I'm sure it may be so in Denmark. So, uncle, there you are," putting his tablets away. "Now to my word. It is adieu, adieu. Remember me. I have sworn it." Horatio and Marcellus now came hurrying up, much alarmed for the safety of their young lord. They found him in a strange mood. The news he had heard from the ghost had been such a shock to Hamlet that for the moment he seemed quite unstrung, and not yet having made up his mind how to act, he did not feel inclined to confide to his companions what he had just been told. He therefore put off their questionings with flippant speeches, and dismissed them in a somewhat summary fashion. "How is it, my noble lord?" cried Marcellus. "What news, my lord?" asked Horatio. "Oh, wonderful," said Hamlet. "Good, my lord, tell it," said Horatio. "No, you will reveal it." "Not I, my lord, by heaven," said Horatio, and Marcellus added, "Nor I, my lord." "How say you then? Would heart of man once think it? But you'll be secret?" "Aye, by heaven, my lord," cried Horatio and Marcellus together. Hamlet lowered his voice to a tone of mysterious importance. There ne'er a villain dwelling in all Denmark, but he's an arrant knave. There needs no ghost, my lord, come from the grave to tell us this, said Horatio, hurt at Hamlet's lack of confidence. Why, right. You are in the right, said Hamlet. And so, without more circumstance at all, I hold it fit that we shake hands and part. You, as your business and desire shall point you, for every man hath business and desire, such as it is. And, for my own poor part, look you, I'll go pray. These are but wild and whirling words, my lord, said Horatio, justly aggrieved. I am sorry they offend you heartily. Yes, faith, heartily. There's no offense, my lord, said Horatio, rather stiffly. Yes, by Patrick, but there is, Horatio, and much offense too, returned Hamlet. But it was of the wrong done by his uncle that he was thinking. Touching this vision here, it is an honest ghost, that let me tell you. For your desire to know what is between us, overmaster it as you may. And now, good friends, as you are friends, scholars and soldiers, give me one poor request. What is it, my lord? We will, said Horatio. Never make known what you have seen tonight. My lord, we will not. Nay, but swear it. Swear it by my sword. And from underneath the ground sounded a solemn voice. Swear! Twice again they shifted their places, and each time from beneath the ground came the hollow voice. Swear! Oh, day and night, but this is wondrous strange, marveled Horatio. And therefore, as a stranger, give it welcome, said Hamlet. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in our philosophy. Then he made them swear that never, however strange or odd he bore himself, as he perchance hereafter should think, meet to put on an antic disposition, that never at such time, seeing him, were they by word or sign to show that they knew anything, or with meaning, nods and smiles, pretend they could explain this strange behavior if they chose. Swear, said the ghost beneath. Rest, rest, perturbed spirit, said Hamlet, and his companions took the oath demanded of them. So, gentlemen, with all my love I do commend me to you, and what so poor a man as Hamlet is may do to express his love and friending to you, God willing shall not lack. Let us go in together, and still your fingers on your lips, I pray. The time is out of joint. O cursed spite, that I was ever born to set it right. Nay, come, let us go together.